She laughed when her best friend humiliated me, calling it a joke. When I asked for respect, she said I was jealous. And then she and him staged an intervention on me to prove that I was the problem. They wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone. But instead, I showed them the truth that burned their lives down. Now everyone who was in that room remembers that night as the moment when everything went wrong, and I as the moment when I finally stopped being a victim. I'm Alan, 32, and I used to think love was supposed to make you feel safe. Turns out love can also make you feel like you're losing your mind. One polite smile, one subtle insult at a time. When I met Lillian, she felt like gravity. She had that effortless charm that made every room orbit around her. I was hooked fast, 3 dates in, and I already knew her coffee order, her favorite sad songs, even the way she twisted her hair when she was overthinking. She made me feel seen, or at least I thought she did. Then came him, Oscar. Her best friend since college, her platonic soulmate, the guy who somehow managed to be at every dinner, every event, every private conversation. He was the kind of man who wore confidence like cologne, strong, overbearing, and impossible to escape. Lillian worshipped his opinions like they were divine truth. Oscar says I should try meditation. Oscar thinks we should do couples therapy. Oscar read an article about toxic masculinity that you should see. At first, I tried to laugh it off. Everyone has that one friend who thinks they're the voice of reason. But it became obvious fast that Oscar wasn't offering advice. He was conducting an experiment. Every comment was a jab wrapped in fake concern. You're steady, Alan. Safe. That's good for some people. Some people. Meaning not Lillian. He'd smirk when she laughed at his digs. I'd sit there, pretending not to notice the electricity between them, pretending not to feel like an extra in my own relationship. Lillian swore it was all harmless. You're just jealous, she'd say, rolling her eyes. You always think people are flirting with me. But jealousy implies you're competing for something that's yours, and by then, I wasn't sure she was. The worst part? They started using me as the punchline. At dinner parties, they'd trade inside jokes about my habits, how I fold laundry like a boomer, how I don't get their intellectual podcasts. I'd laugh along, trying to be the bigger man, but every joke felt like a paper cut in the same spot. One night, after Oscar spent an entire evening mocking my job, I caught my reflection in the restaurant window. I looked like a man apologizing for existing. That night, I went home early, sat on the couch in the dark, and wondered when I'd stopped being her boyfriend and started being her project. The answer came a week later, when Oscar drunkenly handed me the key to both of their downfalls. But that's another story for tomorrow. That night, I realized something about people like Oscar. They don't trip over their egos, they choke on them. It was a Saturday, and Lillian had begged me to, bond with him. He's just trying to get closer to you, she said, like this man hadn't spent 2 years dissecting every aspect of my existence. Still, I went. Because that's what you do when you're trying to keep the peace. You swallow your pride until it burns. The bar was expensive, dimly lit, full of people who laughed too loud at their own reflections. Oscar was already there, halfway through a bottle of scotch and talking like he'd just invented charisma. We ordered a round, and then another, and that's when he said it. You ever wonder what it's like to cheat and not get caught? I thought I misheard him. But he grinned, leaning in like he was sharing state secrets. It's a rush, he slurred. Alice thinks I'm at a conference in Denver. Alice, his wife. The one Lillian always called such a sweet woman. Before I could react, he was unlocking his phone, scrolling through a gallery of disaster. Photos of him half-dressed with another woman, videos in hotel rooms, champagne glasses on balconies. He shoved the phone toward me, like it was something to admire.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching.
Now that's passion, he said. You wouldn't understand, but maybe it'll inspire you. I stared at him, at the images, and for a moment, everything inside me went completely still. He laughed and said, You're not going to say anything, right? We're bros. And I lied. Of course not. He grinned, relaxed, and said, Good man. I'll send them to you. For research. Then, with the stupidity of a man who thought he was untouchable, he airdropped everything. Every photo, every video, every message. Straight to my phone. When the transfer finished, I felt something shift. Not rage, not shock, just clarity. I thanked him, paid the tab, helped him into a cab, and went home. That night, while Lillian slept beside me, I sat in the glow of my phone screen watching Oscar's secrets loop like a confession. His arrogance had finally done something useful. It handed me proof. Not just of who he really was, but of who she really was for defending him. I didn't delete a thing. I backed it all up, encrypted it, and stored it twice. Cloud and Drive. I didn't know when I'd use it, only that I would. Because for the first time since Oscar had entered my life, I wasn't the one reacting anymore. I was waiting. And waiting is something I've always been good at. After that night, I didn't look at either of them the same way. Every time Oscar spoke, every time Lillian quoted him like scripture, I saw those videos playing behind his smug expression. Every time she defended him, I saw her choosing the wrong side of the fire. And still, I said nothing. Silence can be the sharpest weapon if you know how to use it. Weeks passed, and Oscar got bolder. He started walking into our apartment like he owned it. One afternoon, I came home early from work and found him sprawled on our couch with a beer, shoes off, flipping through Netflix. "When did you get a key?" I asked. He smirked. "Lillian gave it to me, for emergencies." I stared at him. "And is this an emergency?" He laughed that irritating low chuckle. "Relax, man. You're so uptight." Lillian came out of the bedroom, smiling awkwardly. "It's fine, Alan. He just stopped by to talk." "About what?" She hesitated. "Just stuff. You're overreacting." It hit me then. Oscar wasn't just intruding. She was letting him. Worse, she was proud of it. Like it made her progressive, evolved, whatever term she used to justify boundaries she'd burned down. That night, I told her it had to stop. "He doesn't need a key," I said. "This isn't normal." Her voice went cold. "You're trying to control me again. This is about your jealousy, not about Oscar." I kept my tone even. "It's about respect. You don't give your best friend access to our home." "God, you're so insecure," she snapped. "Why can't you be more like him? Confident, self-assured?" That one landed like a slap. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just looked at her and said, "Confidence isn't the same as disrespect." She stormed into the bedroom, slammed the door, and I slept on the couch. 3 days later, she came to me, all calm smiles and tight control. "We're going to have a little get-together this weekend," she said over breakfast. "You, me, Oscar, and a few friends. Just to talk things out." I stared at her. "You're staging an intervention?" "It's not an intervention," she said too quickly. "It's a conversation. Everyone will share their perspective. It'll help you see how much your jealousy is hurting us." I smiled then. Slow, small, deliberate. "That's a great idea, Lil." Inside, I already knew. They were planning to humiliate me. They just didn't realize I already had their confession on video, waiting for the perfect audience. Saturday came faster than I wanted it to. The air felt heavier, like even the walls knew something ugly was about to happen. Lillian spent all morning setting up candles, snacks, that curated playlist she used for dinner parties when she wanted to seem emotionally intelligent. She looked radiant, humming while arranging wine glasses, as if she was hosting a therapy session instead of an ambush. Oscar arrived first, of course. He walked in wearing that smug grin that made my teeth clench. "Alan," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Thanks for being open-minded about this. It takes maturity to face your issues." I smiled, happy to learn from the experts. Then came the friends, 3 of Lillian's, all from her yoga group, the kind who post about energy alignment, but gossip like professional saboteurs. They looked uncomfortable but curious, like they'd shown up for a live episode of some reality show. Lillian poured everyone wine and took the lead. "Okay," she said, her voice soft, calm, performative. "We're here because Alan's jealousy has been creating tension, and we want to help him understand where it's coming from." The next hour was a blur of polite humiliation. One friend talked about how trust is the foundation of love. Another said that our trying to control a partner's friendships is emotional immaturity. I just sat there, nodding occasionally, letting them believe they were saving me. Then Oscar stood up. Holding his glass like he was giving a toast, he said, "I've known Lillian for over a decade. Our friendship is based on loyalty and honesty. I'd never come between her and someone she loves. But if a man can't trust his woman, maybe he's not ready for one." Lillian smiled at him, that proud, glowing smile that used to belong to me. "Oscar has always been one of the most important people in my life," she added quickly when she saw my expression. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't just about making me admit jealousy. This was a performance for each other. They wanted to break me publicly, to prove to everyone how enlightened they were compared to me. So I did what they didn't expect. I thanked them. I said I was grateful for their honesty, that I'd reflect on everything. I even apologized to Oscar, to the room, to Lillian, for letting my insecurities get in the way. They bought it, completely. Lillian squeezed my hand, proud of her progress. Oscar nodded approvingly, like a teacher pleased with a slow student. But as I looked around that living room, at their smug faces, basking in self-righteousness, something in me went very, very still. They thought they'd stripped away my pride. What they didn't know was that they'd just given me permission to stop holding back. If they wanted a performance, I'd give them one. But the final act would be mine. Reddit said, 2 days after that intervention, Lillian woke up to a man she didn't recognize. I was calm, too calm. I made her breakfast, kissed her on the forehead, and told her I wanted to make things right. Her relief was immediate, almost euphoric. "I knew you'd come around," she said, smiling like a victor after a long war. I told her I wanted to host a small dinner to apologize. Me, her, Oscar, and Alice. "It's time to clear the air," I said. "I think it would help everyone heal." Her eyes lit up like a child's. "That's such a good idea, Alan. You're really trying." "Trying." "Sure." While she texted invitations, I started preparing the real show. Every file, every video Oscar had drunkenly sent me. I organized it, time-stamped it, formatted it into a clean presentation. I wanted no confusion, no chance for him to twist the story. When the truth hit, it would hit clean. But my composure scared her. She was used to emotional Alan, the one who argued, begged, reacted. This version of me, smiling, patient, silent, unnerved her. She started snooping, going through my phone, checking my laptop history, even showing up at my office one afternoon with surprise lunch and paranoid eyes. My coworkers whispered after she left, and my manager later pulled me aside. "Everything all right at home?" he asked carefully. "Better than ever," I said, and meant it. By Friday, she was convinced our relationship was healing. She even told me Oscar said he was proud of how I was growing. I smiled. Can't wait to see him tomorrow. Saturday arrived with that strange electric stillness before a storm. Lillian wore a blue dress, Oscar's favorite color naturally, and buzzed around the apartment fixing her hair, humming some indie love song. She kept saying, "This is going to be good for us. Oscar says this dinner could be a turning point." I nodded, slipped the small USB drive into my jacket pocket, and thought, yeah, it's going to be a turning point, all right. We got to Oscar and Alice's house at 7 sharp. Oscar opened the door, wearing that same self-satisfied smirk. He clapped me on the back like we were old pals. "Glad you're man enough to admit when you're wrong." Alice was kind, warm as always, completely unaware that her husband's double life was about to explode across her living room wall. Dinner was perfect, almost painfully normal. Small talk, wine, laughter, the illusion of civility hanging by a thread. Then, right before dessert, Lillian tapped her glass. "Alan has something he wants to say." I stood up, heart steady, voice calm. "Yeah," I said. "I do." Every face turned toward me. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the drive, and smiled. I think it's time we all had some honesty. I plugged the USB into the TV like I'd done it 1,000 times before. The room fell into that thick, uncertain silence people get right before a car crash. "Alan," Lillian said lightly, her voice already trembling underneath the fake calm. "What are you doing?" "Just showing something I've been meaning to share," I said. My tone was casual, conversational, the kind of calm that makes people nervous. Then the screen lit up. The first video played, Oscar, shirtless, half drunk, kissing another woman in a hotel room. The camera shifted. You could see her laughing, both of them tangled in sheets. At first, no one breathed. Then a quiet gasp from Alice, soft but sharp like a wound being reopened. "Oscar," she whispered. "What is this?" Oscar shot to his feet, face pale. "Turn that off, now." But I didn't. The next clip rolled. Another night, same woman, different hotel, a champagne bottle in the background, then screenshots, text messages of him bragging to a friend. "She has no idea. I'm untouchable." Then one last message. "Thanks, man. I owe you. Let's never talk about this again." I paused the screen there. The words froze behind me like a courtroom exhibit. "This is the man who gives relationship advice," I said quietly. "The man who told Lillian I was insecure. The man who told her she deserved better." Lillian's voice cracked. "This isn't... Alan, this is fake. He's trying to humiliate you, Alice." Alice just stared at her husband. "Is it fake?" she asked him, voice trembling. Oscar's silence was louder than any confession. Then he snapped. "You set me up," he shouted, lunging across the room toward me. His wine glass flew off the table, shattering on the floor. I sidestepped, calm, practiced. He stumbled into a chair, swore, then swung at me, wild and sloppy. I blocked it, shoved him back into the wall, hard enough to rattle the picture frames. "Don't," I said evenly. "Not here, not tonight." The room was chaos. Lillian screaming, her friends frozen, Alice crying. Oscar tried to get up again, but I just stood over him, and something in my eyes must have told him the truth. This was over. Alice moved first. She stood, tears streaming, voice steady. "Get out," she told him. "Get out of my house." Oscar stared at her, then at the screen, then at me. "You think this makes you the good guy?" he spat. "No," I said, "just the honest one." He grabbed his coat, stumbled toward the door. Lillian followed, shouting after him, but he didn't look back. I turned to her. "You picked him over me because you thought he was stronger, smarter, better." I gestured to the shattered glass, the frozen screen. "This is who he really is." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I walked out into the cold night air, leaving her standing in the wreckage. Behind me, I could still hear the faint sound of Alice crying. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel small. I felt clean. The next morning, the silence in our apartment was suffocating. The kind of silence that buzzes in your ears and makes you realize just how much noise someone else used to fill your life with. Lillian sat on the edge of the bed, mascara smudged, eyes hollow. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. When I walked into the kitchen, she followed, barefoot, voice sharp from exhaustion. "I hope you're proud of yourself," she snapped. "You humiliated me. You humiliated everyone." I poured my coffee slowly, keeping my back to her. "No," I said. "Oscar humiliated himself. I just turned on the lights." She laughed, bitter, cracked. "You planned that. You trapped us." "You're right," I said, meeting her glare. "Because I was done being your punching bag." Her tone shifted, softer now, almost pleading. "You didn't have to destroy everything. You could have told Alice privately. You didn't have to..." I cut her off. "And then you both have told everyone I made it up. You would have defended him again, just like always." That hit her. She looked away, eyes wet, breathing heavy. Then she tried one last pivot. "We can fix this," she whispered. "You went too far, but I understand why. It's because you love me." I almost laughed. Love isn't supposed to feel like a hostage situation, Lillian. Her face twisted, desperation turning into rage. You'll regret this, she said, voice trembling. You're throwing away the best thing you'll ever have. I leaned against the counter. Cam. You got 4 weeks to move out. My name's on the lease. After that, the locks change. She froze. You're kicking me out? I'm freeing myself, I said quietly. That night, she cried loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I didn't comfort her. The next few days were chaos and slow motion. Her messages came in waves. Apologies, accusations, threats. You ruined everything. You embarrassed me. I hate you. I miss you. Please, talk to me. When text didn't work, she showed up at my office with pastries and fake smiles. I told security she wasn't allowed upstairs anymore. Then came the smear campaign, cryptic social media posts about narcissistic partners and emotional abuse. I ignored it all. The truth had already burned her credibility to ash. Oscar's downfall spread like wildfire. The video made its way around their entire social circle. Alice went silent, which told me everything. Silence meant lawyers. His company demoted him, clients vanished, and his spotless image cracked in public. Lillian's unraveling was slower, but crueler. She couldn't stand being irrelevant. Every failed attempt to provoke me made her more desperate. One night, she left a handwritten note on my doorstep. We belong together. You'll see. I shredded it without reading the rest. By the time her move-out deadline hit, half her stuff was gone. The other half still scattered like she'd tried to pack during a panic attack. When she finally left, I didn't follow her to the door. I just stood in the middle of the apartment and listened to nothing. And for the first time in years, the silence felt like peace. By the time winter faded, everything that needed to burn had burned. Lillian was back at her parents' place, posting filtered photos and long, cryptic captions about growth after betrayal. Oscar was renting a small apartment on the edge of town, juggling alimony payments and the collapse of his career. The man who once bragged about being untouchable was now counting grocery coupons and avoiding eye contact with old friends. They deserved each other. And for a while, they actually tried to make it work. I heard through a mutual friend that they moved in together, two broken egos clinging to the same wreckage. It didn't last. Within months, neighbors were calling the police over shouting matches, dishes thrown, phones smashed. Every manipulation, every game they'd played with me and Alice, they started turning on each other. That's what happens when the lies run out of room to hide. I didn't feel joy watching them self-destruct, just distance. It was like watching a storm tear down a house I'd already moved out of. I'd stopped checking their social media, stopped responding to mutual friends' updates. I didn't need to know who was winning their latest argument. I was busy rebuilding my own life. I replaced the locks, repainted the walls, and donated anything that reminded me of her. The apartment felt lighter, quiet but not empty. I started sleeping through the night again. Work improved. I started running in the mornings, reading more, cooking again. Small, ordinary things that somehow felt like freedom. 3 months after that disastrous dinner, I got an email from Alice. Short, polite. Thank you for telling me the truth. I'm doing better now. I hope you are too. I reread it a few times before replying, I'm glad you're okay. If you ever want to talk, I'd like that. We met for coffee a week later. It was awkward at first. Two people bound by the same wreckage, unsure what to say without bringing it all up. But slowly, something unspoken settled between us. Mutual understanding. No pretending, no games. One coffee became two. Then lunch, then dinner. It wasn't some whirlwind romance. It was quiet, steady, built on respect and truth. Sometimes I catch myself thinking how poetic it is. How two people who were lied to by the same pair found honesty in each other. But mostly I just feel peace, because in the end this was never about revenge. I didn't destroy them, they destroyed themselves. I just stopped helping them hide it. What I found instead wasn't victory, it was clarity. And standing in my apartment one night, the city lights spilling through the window, I finally understood something simple and devastating. I didn't lose Lillian. I lost the version of myself who tolerated her. And that, honestly, was the best thing that ever happened to me.